to start. Okay, welcome to Roll and Release, part 2. Thank you for being here, for taking time out of your day to learn more about how we can now focus a little bit more on the upper body, as well as it plays really well into our posture, especially when we apply it to the workplace, working remotely at a desk and sitting a lot throughout the day. So we're definitely going to target those areas for sure. So we're going to do a little bit of a review to start with, and then I will speak to some postural stuff, and then we'll dive into the demonstrations of the upper body. So let's dive in. But first, before I go over these stats, let's do a little posture check. So where is your head right now? Is it over your shoulders and centered, or do you find that it's a little bit more forward? So a lot of times, you know, the texting is out here, or we're looking at something on a computer, so pull your head back and make sure that it's right directly over your shoulders. Then let's speak to your shoulders. Are they up towards your ears, or can you intentionally press them down away from your ears? Then focus on retracting or just pulling your shoulder blades back to open up your chest. So certainly if we're at a desk or again texting on a phone, everything starts to round. So make sure that you retract your shoulder blades. So now you hopefully will feel a little bit taller than when we first started. If you are at a desk, are your elbows bent at 90 degrees and resting, on the desk, wrists in neutral position, meaning they're a little bit more in the straighter position versus flexed. And then we'll focus on your back. Is your back supported by your seat? I tend to always sit on the edge of my seat because I'm a little bit shorter, which leads me into the next prompt is, are your feet flat on the floor or flat on a little something elevated that you can be supported there? So, okay, now hopefully we feel better and better alignment and posture because we're going to talk about the effects of sitting. So 86% of Americans workers sit all day long, and that's a huge percentage. The average that I found comes out to about 6.5 to 10 hours a day, which can wreak havoc on our musculoskeletal system. Sitting behind a desk, I'm going to point number 2 here, the body soft tissue begins to stick together. So I'll cover this in the next slide, and we did cover this a little bit in Roll and Release part 1, but your fascia, which is like connects all your tendons, muscles, everything together. Your fascia and your muscles should glide easily past each other. But when we sit, then they become sticky and kind of think a little bit gummy, and then adhesions start to appear, which is kind of thinking in terms of when you say, oh, I got a knot, that's what happens when your tissues start to stick together. And so the goal is really to keep a body in motion, and we covered this in the first one too, but a good posture is a variable one, so switching it up. So that's what I wanted to cover there. And then musculoskeletal disorders account for 32% of all workplace injuries. So think carpal tunnel, tendonitis, low back pain, things like that. It is encouraging to know, though, we can be a little bit more proactive in trying to help, combat that with things like myofascial release, with getting up and moving around intentionally throughout the day. So let's dive in a little bit further to a little bit more review from part 1. So what is fascia? Again, think about it like a spider web or like a sweater. So it should be nice, loose, relaxed, and wavy. It wraps around all the muscles, tendons, and ligaments. What causes muscle soreness? Again, the poor posture. So that's why I wanted to just dive into that a little bit more, just being aware of your posture, any repetitive motions or dysfunctional movement too. If you're always moving with certain movement patterns that don't serve your body, it's going to end up, pain, chronic pain conditions, things like that. And overtraining can be a source of that as well. So why use myofascial release? Again, we're here because it's going to increase circulation, help with range of motion and mobility, help with the quality of your movements, even whether it's activities of daily living, or if you're joining us for our group exercise classes, we want you to move well and pain-free, and doing things like this, like myofascial release, will certainly help with that. It also helps to fight scar tissues and adhesions that can, form in the body. So other things that I just always like to note is contraindications, which we covered this a little bit last time too, but any newly injured areas, or we want to avoid like bony prominences. We don't ever want to roll like on our abdomen, anywhere like within the armpit. So those are places or things that we want to avoid. Or any chronic pain conditions, you always want to avoid those areas, because sometimes when you're rolling, you're working into those muscles, and there can be a little inflammation in there, which isn't a bad thing for those certain areas, but if they are injured or have been a chronic condition, we want to avoid those. So just a couple of things to review from our first time together with the roll and release part 1. And then I'm going to cover these again just because we'll be going through demonstrations, so I want you to be aware, and it's a good review. So positioning is always important. So when we're on the foam roller, sometimes we have to use like the strength of our upper body to support us. We did that more with lower body, but we'll still use some of that today. So we always want to make sure that we have a good alignment. So like if your shoulder, we want to make sure your shoulder is over your wrist when you're like propping yourself up. Or improper placement, again, if you're doing it on a bone, we don't want that. We want to avoid the spine, things like that. So positioning is very important. I'm going to try my best to, show that to you visually via the computer. So duration. So this is always one that like will work in reps of 4. And I'm going to drop down to number 4 on the list here, techniques. So like rolling, when you're foam rolling along the foam roller, you would do 4 reps of that. If you did cross friction, like think about rubbing your hands together, 4 reps of that, spanning, and so on. Now, it's not always accessible to do all those techniques when hitting one spot. So like for instance, when we do our neck and traps, we won't be able to do all those techniques, but we'll utilize the ones that we can. And then sometimes you can do it for time as well. Like you can do those 4 reps for about 30 to 60 seconds. If you find a spot that you're like, ooh, that's like, I need to give some attention to that knot or adhesion, you can just, press some pressure onto it and just breathe. And you don't have to do any of those techniques or moves. You just let like the trigger point release itself. So you can hold for time too. Pressure is what we're going to work with a little bit differently again today. Like last month, we stacked our legs for extra pressure. So today I'll have you press like your hand down for extra pressure or use a block. You can also stand up and use gravity, or we're going to use the wall today too. So if you have a wall handy, great. If not, it's okay. You can always try it later on too. And then we just covered this a little bit too, the density of, your foam roller that you're using. So this one is it's a decent density. I would say it's probably medium to heavy a little bit. There are softer ones than this. Again, there's foam rollers that have like the lugs on them. Those are going to be definitely more intense. I wouldn't start out with those if you're new to foam rolling. And then the sizes can be different. So like this is a bigger one, and then I have this smaller one too that I might use for one of them today, but I prefer the bigger one because it's a little bit more versatile. And then we have the tennis ball too that we'll use a lot today. And again, it's a little bit softer versus like a golf ball or softball. So just be mindful of the density that you're using. Okay, and then again, just to cover these, we'll go with a tennis ball, but you can use a softball or golf ball. The stick was, you can buy it on like Amazon or Trigger Point Therapy website. I used a rolling pin last week. We don't use it for the upper body, but again, I just wanted you to know that's a resource. And then the foam roller, of course. So those are the tools that we'll use today. And I just wanted to give you an outline of the lay of the land of where we'll go with the upper body. So we're actually going to start with the forearm because, again, this is the workplace, so we're mostly on computers, typing and everything. And so it's good to target the forearm because it definitely takes stress with sitting at a computer all day. We'll work on the chest, your neck, and upper traps. Your rotator cuff, that one's a little bit tricky, but we'll try it. And then your lats here, your rhomboids are between your shoulder blade and your spine, and then the thoracic spine, the upper body. So a lot to get through, so we're going to dive into that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, and then I'm going to pull this back up, so hopefully you can see me. I'm going to go into spotlight mode, so hello. Okay, so let's start with the forearm. So with the forearm, if you're sitting at a desk, this might be a little bit easier, but I'm like
Jamie,
on a stool. Yep.
You, like, stop sharing your screen because we see 2 of you right now.
Okay, hold on. do I need to?
Top where it says stop sharing, like above your head.
Yep.
Yep. And
Do
then
that.
for people who are watching, they just have to click hide stage to see.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did do that last time.
Okay, we're good.
You good? Okay. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate it. And if you have questions, just throw them in the chat box, and then Amanda can navigate that with me. Okay, so I'm just going to, I just have this block here, or, you know, you can use a hardcover book because I'm not at a desk right now, but if you're at a desk, that's what I would suggest. So tennis ball places on the block or desk, and then you're going to place, maybe I'll go on the side here so you can see. I'm going to place my forearm. So again, I'm not on a bony prominence like my elbow. I'm in front of that. So I'm going to start back first. And then, so maybe this is enough pressure for you. Otherwise, you can press down with your other hand. Okay. And then we work the foam or the roll. Okay. So we're working the roll with a tennis ball. So 4 rolls. We go 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. And then cross friction, you can actually like move your arm like side to side. This one's a little funky, but you can still get in there a little bit. So that's about 4. And then my favorite one is to flex the hand and release, and then flex and release. And again, I'm pressing down with this top hand as I'm doing this, but you determine what feels best for you. Okay, so that was good there. Then I'm just going to take it about an inch or so forward, like down towards my hand. I'm going to press down, and then I do it again. 4, 3, 2, 1. I hold. I shift, a little cross friction, side to side. That was a very small movement. And then flex and release. Flex and release. And make sure you breathe with it. So I exhale as I flex. Maybe one more there. Good. Now, if it feels okay, you can go about 1 more inch. You're getting closer to the wrist here, so just be mindful of how that feels. So I'll go back to my roll. 2, 3, 4, and then a little of that. I move my hand and wrist more on this one, but I'm still pressing down. 2, 1, and then I flex and relax. Flex and relax. Good. So we got about 3 different sections there. So you can do that side. If it feels okay, you can also try the opposite side of your forearm. So I just flip it open, or like my palm up rather, and then find if you have to readjust. Sometimes that tennis ball has a mind of its own. And then again, just make sure that you're not on the bone. So this one I tend to like move around a little bit more. Might even go there. Yeah. Couple there. Hold. A little friction. And then I just flex it the opposite way. I mean, you can do it like down like that and up, whatever feels good for you. Again, if it doesn't feel good or if there's any pain here, I would avoid it and just stick with the regular palm down. But sometimes it's really good to work both sides of the body. You'd be surprised like what muscles are. And again, you do 4 again. And then point and flex. Oops, I meant friction. Yep, and then point and flex. I'm not going to do that third one, just I want to be mindful of time, but that's how you would do the forearm front and back. What I do also want to show you is if I don't use a tennis ball for rolling techniques, what I like to do is I'll grab my wrist with my opposite hand, I'll pull down like on my skin a little bit, and then I'll do some circles. And this feels so good after a day of typing and all that, and then I rotate the opposite direction. Circle, circle, circle. And then I can still do that point and flex here too. Now, when we do these and we go through, before we do the other side, I always just like to do some movements and feel if there's a difference between the 2 sides. So like right now, I feel like I have more range of motion on this side versus this wrist. So always just kind of assess that. Let's just do the forearm on this side real quick. So now I press down the opposite, and then I roll. 2, 1, cross friction, and then point and flex. And just notice, like you're gonna have the body, our bodies are very asymmetrical, and then you can move it about an inch. So you're definitely gonna notice that one side of the body needs a little bit more attention than the other. which is kind of how we roll. No pun intended there. Good. And then cross friction. And then point and flex. Good. And then maybe one more here. Again, find that pressure that works for you. So this is where we stack the joints. Friction. And then point and flex. Awesome. Okay, so that covers the forearms. Again, you could go to the back of it if you feel necessary. This one's my next, like probably my favorite. So we're going to do the chest next. Definitely, again, when we have rounded shoulders and everything, everything is constricted here. So you're going to go from the top of your shoulder to the middle of your nipple, and then you go right in the middle of those two spots. So like this is the angle that you're going at, and that goes right in the middle. Now you don't need a block or a book. You can just use your hands to add the pressure. I just like using a yoga block like this. So now a couple of different techniques. You're going to do side to side. So again, this could be your cross friction. And again, this one, it's going to be very intense. So again, you know, when we get uncomfortable, we hold our breath. That was more than 4. Then I go up and down. So try to breathe through it as best you can. And that was about 4. And then I find circle. My favorite. Good. And then opposite direction. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now again, if I were doing this for time and I had like 30 seconds on the clock, I could go back and do a second round. But for time's sake, we'll move to the other side. But before you do it, now just take a nice little like circle or two and just kind of notice. Again, I feel more range of motion on this side versus the side that I haven't done yet. So again, middle, like nipple, shoulder, right in the middle there. Press the block or your hands against it. And then side to side. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then pull down. Again, it's not a big movement. Just like little inch increments there. Circle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Other side. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice job. And then again, just kind of take those chest expansions, see how that feels. That is my favorite. Okay, for the next ones, we're going to go to the wall for the next 2. So if you don't have a wall, I'll just show you first from the side because it might be hard to picture this when I get to the wall because I might be a little bit more farther away from you. So we're going to go to the neck and traps. So you're actually not going to place the tennis ball on your neck. So your traps are this like the top of your shoulder and then kind of just go back just slightly there. So I place it right here. Now again, when you go to the wall, it is kind of hard to keep it in place, but just try your best. So when you come to the wall, you're going to like trap the tennis ball between the wall and your shoulder traps. Okay, now I found the spot where it's pretty intense. So right now I'm just going to breathe into it, pressing my weight into the ball. So I might do that for 10 to 20 seconds, depending on how intense it is. Then we can start to add in some arm movement. So I can raise my arm up and down. And again, if you're like, okay, maybe I think it moved a little bit and you have to adjust it, feel free. I'm almost just slightly at a little bit of an angle here too, where my feet are a little bit out. Up and down. Good. Then from here, you can even work some arm sweeps. So more of a little like half snow angel. And see how that changes things. Again, you can move your body a little bit here to get to those different areas of the trap. Next, and again, I'm still working in that 4 reps. I take the arm across the body, okay, and I can look that way. You can do a little bit of that spanning where you kind of move your body just slightly. Yes, the tennis ball may move, so just be mindful. Good. Then I'm going to take the arm the other way. And I'm going to look over my shoulder, and then I can, if it feels okay, I'm going to drop, you can even drop your hand at your side. You're going to take your gaze over to that side, away from the tennis ball, and then just to feel it a little bit differently, I bring my chin towards my shoulder. Ooh, yeah, that gets into that spot just a little bit deeper. Okay, And as you like let the weight of your body weight like press into the tennis ball, you'll start to feel like that trigger point or that like muscle knot start to release. Okay, so there I just actually found a little bit more intense spot there. So you just kind of have to play around with it a little bit. So that's that side. Let's do the other side. So again, find your trap here, like so in between the neck and the shoulder. And then I place the tennis ball there. I walk over to the wall. I place it there. I find that sweet spot or intense spot. I breathe. And let's try this side. So I raise up. Yeah, my right side is always, so it looks like my left side facing you, but my right side is always a little bit tighter. So I do the 4 arm sweeps here. Oop, lost it. Now, another trick that I learned, if you have a spot that's a little bit further down your back, go into the half snow angel, you can put the tennis ball in a nylon, and then it's the tennis ball is at the bottom of the nylon, and you put that against the wall, and then you can kind of, from here, take it across. Here's your cross friction. You can control it a little bit better by holding the end of the nylon and then like kind of placing the tennis ball in place lower on your back if it's hard to reach. Okay, so I was spanning side to side there. Then I'm going to take the other arm across, look over, see how that feels a little bit different. I can take my arm out down to the side. I'm going to look towards you, and I'm going to let my head drop over, away. And again, I might even move the tennis ball a little bit here to get closer to the neck, but again, just not on the neck. And then bring my chin down to my shoulder. Okay, perfect. Any questions with that? Just again, throw them in the chat, and I'll get to them at the end. But that's how you're going to get the traps. Then for the rotator cuff, this one is a little bit trickier. What I'm going to have you do is you're going to bring the tennis ball on the upper part of the arm to start. So hang with me here. So I don't really bring it down towards the elbow or like the bicep. I keep it up here, and I'm going to go against the wall. So this will be kind of tricky. But so I'm placing it against the wall, the upper part of the shoulder arm, and then I'm going to like slide, essentially like slide it kind of against the wall like this. Essentially, okay, so you're going to do that for just 4 of those. Okay, so I'm just holding it here. Again, this one's kind of tricky to keep it in place. Then it wraps around, okay? Now this is where you have to be mindful of the armpit, and that's why this one's kind of tricky. I just lost it. So I'm placing it behind. It's like just above my armpit, but not on my armpit. And then again, I'm going to span side to side. So this one is tricky, but I wanted to show it to you just so you have it. I'm going to probably send you just a link to another resource that can like show you a little bit closer in a different angle, okay? And then you would do the other side where I'd start on the upper part of the arm, and then work up and down. Again, keep it small, like keep it small rolls. And then I take it towards the back side of the shoulder, just above like that armpit area. If it's painful, pain and uncomfortable are 2 different things, right? So I don't want it to be painful for you. So if it is, just back off and just maybe skip that one, okay? So that one was a quick one just because I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's a little bit trickier. So we're going to head down to the floor next. This is where you would use your foam roller for your lats. So your lats run here alongside your body. So I'm going to place the roller horizontally. Then this is where you're going to use a little bit more of your body to like hold your body up, and you'll see why in a second. So I have my upper back on the foam roller, so I'm using like my glutes to lift my hips off the floor. I bring my hands behind my head. Then ever so slightly, I turn my body towards you right now, but I turn it to the side. So now it should be running alongside your lats. So from here, we're going to work rolling first. So I start closer to my arm, and I'm rolling just a tiny space right there. This can be intense. So again, just be mindful. 2, 1. Just a little bit on here, but be mindful of you don't need to go too low on this. So I may have like 2 sections with the lats, okay? Okay, so there's another 4 rolls. Then I hold, and I'm going to work arm sweeps. So my hand comes out straight, and I'm working the arm sweep here. Whew. Yep, that's intense. Breathe. Again, I know your neck is supporting you here too, so you can kind of just support it with that hand. Okay, then you can bring the hand back and work a little bit of that spanning where the foam roller stays in place, but you roll just slightly. Yep. I think that was about 4. Good, then we come back to center, and then we do the other side. So again, you kind of roll off to the side just slightly. Find that little inch movement of the roll. So I'm going to face away from you. Hopefully you can see this a little bit. And I'm going to work up just slightly, a little bit further, but not much past that first set. 4. Okay, come back to your starting spot. Bring your hand out straight, and then find your arm sweep. 2, 3, and 4, and then that spanning once again. Side to side, just a little bit of those rotations. And good. Okay, so that's your latch. Feel that side. Those can be very sensitive. Next, you're going to go into your rhomboids, which again are in between your shoulder blade and your spine. I think I'm going to face this way so you can see it a little bit better. So my voice isn't going to project that way, but hopefully you can hear me okay. So when you lay down, I have my head supported on the foam roller. I'm going to cross and go grab opposite shoulders, and then you never want to roll on your spine. I think you can see me okay. So you're going to just go side to side just slightly in the middle part between your spine and that shoulder blade. Okay, you can even rotate over a little bit. Here's getting hot. Like so, and go off to the side. So there's your 4 rolls. Okay, and then you just shift your weight over to the other side. Cross your arms, roll. It's a very tiny spot in there, and it's hard to get to. We just want to make sure we avoid that spine. Okay, now that's one way to do it. Or you can come horizontally, and you can roll out your upper back, your thoracic spine. We just want to avoid the low back. Okay, and then with those rhomboids, it's kind of similar to the lats, except you don't come all the way over to the side, where you find that little bit of that roll right there, the spanning, and then you can do the other side just slightly. Okay, and then again, you can work those little bit of rolls on the upper back here. Then, the last one that I want to show you is the thoracic spine with the tennis ball. So you're going to grab, so you can use, this is a little bit of a trick. If you have 2 tennis balls, awesome. If you have 1, that's okay too. But you have a sock. I already have a tennis ball in here. And then, so similar to like that nylon that I was talking about, like this would be in the bottom of the nylon and the top. This is a little bit smaller. You can also buy a setup like this at like a trigger point therapy, the trigger point therapy website. I'll include those in the wrap-up email. So you have this because you don't want the tennis balls on your spine. So like your spine is going to be right in the middle. And then, again, there's like 3 different zones. And this will be in your notes when I hand this out to you. So there'll be pictures and everything that you can follow. I place it in that lower zone, like at the bottom of my wrist. Now here's where gravity definitely plays a part. And then I'll reach overhead and I'll reach down. Inhale up and exhale, release. I'll do 4 of those, and then I would hug myself and then do the spanning side to side. And then I just roll down. Again, just make sure that the space is still in the middle. And then I would do it again. And now you're just in a different section of your thoracic spine, your upper back. And then hug side to side. And then the last section or 2 you would do closer to those traps. So this is another way that you can get the traps too, is using those tennis balls and using the floor and your body weight. Okay, so I just kind of try to demonstrate those different sections that you would take. Okay, that's a lot, you guys, right? Always cover so much in this. So yes, this video will be posted to our YouTube page. Some other things just to keep in mind is, again, I'll include links to where you can find some of these tools if you don't have them. And then just when it comes to the workplace, a variable posture is the best posture, and move well and then move often. So, take time to do that self-myofascial release. Get the lubrication back into like your joints and that fascia and the muscles, being that it should glide on top of each other. So we're avoiding those adhesions that can happen when we sit for too long, or if we don't find length. So I hope that was helpful. I'll send those resources for you, and I appreciate you being here.